So good afternoon, everybody. We're tuning in for Brunswick and Beyond, the second annual edition of it. Last year, we had tremendous success with so many views on YouTube and everybody that dialed in live as well. So over 3,000 views that we had last year. And so I think we'll max it out again this year. And so I'll go ahead and do an introduction of myself, Shakir Robinson, professionally Captain Shakir Robinson in the United States Marine Corps. And all you guys are here for Brunswick and Beyond. It's an event that we started a year ago with the vision that I truly believe that in our community in South Georgia, we have the character, the drive, and the intelligence to succeed not only in Brunswick and beyond. And I say that from experience, having gone through K through 12 in Brunswick in the Glenn County school system, and then going off to the Marine Corps, the Naval Academy, and as of today, being to 28 countries. And then I would say attribute a lot of that success and the ability to be able to operate in those spaces all contribute back to growing up in Brunswick, Georgia, and the training I've got, the people I've met, the mentors I've had, the coaches that really poured into me along the way. And so with Brunswick and Beyond, we have two goals. And I was kind of talking about this a little bit earlier with Jerry. The first goal is over the next 5 weeks, there's going to be over 17 panelists that we're going to have on here. And goal number one is for these students to be able to see yourself in one of these panelists. Maybe not to a T, because I get it, everybody's different. But the goal is that you can see yourself reaching that next level in whatever kind of profession or wherever you see your version of success being. So that's number one. And then number two is be able to gain some real raw insight into future careers so that in the future you can be more informed on what you might want to do after high school, where you want to be, where you want to go, and kind of what's the process and the pipeline to get there. And so without further ado, I'll quit talking about the goals, the vision, and myself. I want to introduce the cast that we got, the panelists that rogered up to be able to be a part of us today. And so I'll go from left to right on my screen. And if you can say your name, what high school you went to, and then what year you graduated, and then we'll go from there and continue on with the questions. So on my screen, Kobe, I got you up first, man. If you can go ahead and give your name, what school you went to and where you graduated, and then we'll go from there.
Hi, I'm Colby Greiner. I went to Brunswick High School and I graduated 2 years ago in 2020.
Okay, word up. Hey, going in the middle of my screen right now, Jerry, you're up.
Okay. My name is Jerry Eberhard, and I graduated from the Glenn Academy, class of 2012.
Okay, awesome, brother. Thanks. And then Cassie, bringing up the rear.
Hi, I'm Cassie Conley. I also went to Glenn Academy and I graduated in 2010.
Okay, awesome. So we got some people still dialing in right now, but we're going to go ahead and jump into the questions that I have. And kind of the flow of this is going to be from who were you as a high school student? Where did you want to go if you decided to go the college route? And then kind of what's your current career field that you're in right now? And so I'll go to start with Jerry. If you kind of can describe, who was Jerry as a high school student from freshman to senior year? Use a couple sentences to describe who you were. And I think that'll allow some of the students to be able to better engage with who the panels are today.
My time in high school, I would say I was really dialed into sports. I played football, so a lot of my times were spent, playing football or practicing lifting weights, and I also ran track. So in between that time, I was mainly focused on going to the next level, and that gained a lot of my time during school and outside of schoolwork and stuff like that. Awesome.
I'm with it. Thanks for the little introduction. And then Cassie, I know we got a long history, having been friends and compadres for about over 15 years now. Can you talk a little bit about who you were as a high school student and what your interests were?
Yeah, absolutely. We've known each other since second grade. In high school, I was definitely a super nerd. I also played tennis, but I was highly involved in Model UN. I really enjoyed school generally, and so I spent a lot of time working on it, but I was also pretty social, so I'd say I had some balance, but I guess that's who I was in high school.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Evolving every single year that I know you. Kobe, bring it up, man. You're going to start off the questions, but first to start off, who were you as a high school student just a few years ago?
Yeah, I would say in high school, I really enjoyed it. I spent most of my time focused in, I played tennis for a couple years, but I spent the most of my time focused in FBLA and other organizations like student council. But that's kind of where I started my interest in and what we're about to talk about, but that would be aviation and, filmmaking.
Okay, let's go ahead and stay on that topic right now because I know Jerry and Cassie, they're kind of already into their careers fully, and I know you're in the process right now over in Statesboro. But can you talk about it? I think when I talked to Miss Griner over at Brunswick High, at one point you're full tilt into to aviation with the private pilot's license. Then at some point you made a transition. But can you talk about that, like your interests and what did you initially go to college for? Why did you decide to go that route? And then where did the transition come in to wanting to pursue one of your passions?
Yeah, so like I said, in high school, my big focuses were aviation and filmmaking. I enjoyed both of those. I was always kind of interested in aviation, and so around my junior year is when I, started the process of my pilot's license and started doing flight training, and that kind of continued over into my senior year. So COVID kind of set me back. So I ended up receiving my private pilot's license right after I graduated high school during that summer. And my plan was to go to college and major in aviation and eventually move on to the airlines and flight instructor, that's kind of stuff. So I did my first year of college at Middle Georgia State University and their aviation program in East Bend. I enjoyed it, made some good friends and learned a lot. And about halfway, the second semester there, it kind of shifted my interest. And after, doing a lot of studying, I decided that aviation, I enjoyed it as a hobby. I love flying. I still do to this day, but I don't really want to do that for a living for the rest of my life. So from that point on, I shifted to my other interest that I'm still, I still work on, and that's filmmaking.
I love it, man. Thanks for the insight on that. And we're gonna come back to you because there's a couple of details I want to pull out of that, especially going into like the creative side. And then transition over to Cassie. I know we both did Model United Nations, Model UN back in Needwood, and that transition up to high school as well, and over into college. And I know you did your undergraduate degree, your bachelor's degree in international affairs. Can you talk about a little bit, like as you left high school, how did you decide on what you wanted to study? And then maybe on the tail end of this question as well, what advice would you give a high schooler that's a junior or senior who doesn't really have a direction of where they want to go or is kind of unsure about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Model UN definitely played a big role in me majoring in international affairs, it's political science with international affairs. So I always loved politics. I always loved politics on the international scale, current events. I always kept up on that. So that's what led me to pursue a degree in that. In retrospect, it probably wasn't the most useful degree I could have obtained. I probably would have done better off in my profession, getting an English degree because I write constantly, or a business degree. But really, you can get any degree and become a lawyer. There's no exclusive degree that you have to get. If I was considering what to major in as a high schooler, and I was the first person in my family to go to college, so I didn't really know how to decide what degree to get. I just kind of winged it as I went. But I would say find something that interests you. If you do have an idea of what your career path is, kind of see what feeds into that, and you can find that, on Google. But do something that interests you and don't be afraid to change once you get to college. I wouldn't recommend changing like 10 times because that might set you back a few years. If you need to, that's okay too. But, your first 2 years are generally core classes. And so to the extent that you can get a feel for what you like, pursue that. And oftentimes that can result in a career.
Awesome. I love it. There's one more note I want to hit because I don't think every single student knows about your process that you did as far as like the JD MBA route that you did. So can you explain JD/MBA, what it is for those juniors and seniors that may not know, and then why you decided to go that route?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a Juris Doctor, which is a law degree, and then an MBA, which is a master's in business administration. I actually did it a little differently than most people do. After undergrad, I spent 3 years working in the financial services industry and decided to get my MBA. So I started going to school for my MBA at night. found out Georgia State had a wonderful JD MBA program where you could get both degrees simultaneously if you just took a few more classes. And so I started pursuing that and ended up getting my law degree and my MBA at the same time. So that means basically I took law classes, and some of the credits for my law and ethics classes satisfied some of the credits for my MBA. So it's really a better value in terms of finances, but it's also awesome because if you want to do some sort of civil law, or you want to be, at the top of a company advising them on compliance or something like that, it's a very beneficial joint degree to have.
Awesome. There we go. So international affairs experience, JD, MBA, kind of the full Monty of what you can do. And then Jerry, I know you mentioned about it a little bit earlier. In high school, you really focused on sports, track, football, and the like. Can you talk about your transition to college, right? Did you end up playing college sports? And if you didn't, what made you want to go into criminal science? You got to unmute yourself, brother.
Doing it. There we go. Honestly, towards the end of my sports career, reality hit. I wasn't as fast as I thought I was. I wasn't as talented as I thought I was, and I wasn't as tall as I thought I was. So going to playing at the next level wasn't an option that I had. My route to actually getting to school was actually most different because I spent so much time focusing on schools and trying to attain a scholarship that when that didn't happen, I didn't know exactly what to do. And then that's why a program like Brunswick and Beyond is so important, because you get so many different outlooks on how people got to where they were, how they did. But I actually waited to the second half of my senior year to start taking standardized tests. And
So you're talking about the SAT and the ACT, right?
yeah, the SAT and the ACT. I waited to the second half of my senior year to take that. And as far as my advice, do not do that. Start taking those tests during your junior year so that you have an ample amount of time to get the scores that you want to get so you can go to the college that you really want to be at. So I ended up having to go to a 2-year college, which became a 4-year college, which is Middle Georgia State University. I enrolled there as a general studies major, so I was just generally studying everything because I wasn't sure on what I wanted to be. I just knew that I had to go to college. And then what made me get into my criminal justice field period was actually a call to action. August 9th, 2014, Michael Brown was shot and killed. And looking at that, I was thinking, if I put myself inside that situation, if I'm that officer, if I'm that person who can look at somebody else, it could be a different outcome. Maybe I have a different judgment when it comes to those things. So I felt like in order to fix a systematic problem, I had to become part of that systematic problem. And that's how I ended up changing my major to criminal justice.
I love it, man. Thanks for the insight. And what's just one more piece of advice you give to all the high school athletes? Because, I think we all, at some point, you take statistics in college, possibly depending on your major. I know I took it. And then the statistics of it is, every single high school athlete, whether it's tennis like Cassie and Kobe, or football like you, don't make it to the next level on the college level, the collegiate level. So what advice would you give to athletes as they prepare, to want to make it, but also prepare to possibly go another route?
Always chase your dreams, but you have to have a backup plan. You have to pay attention in school. You have to get the grades. You have to be open-minded and looking into different avenues and other things that interest you. Whatever sport that you do may be number one in your life, but you have to pay close attention to number two as well. And because number one may not always be available.
Awesome. Thanks. I appreciate it. And Kobe, you're kind of in that college grind right now. Can you kind of speak about what's the average day-to-day life like? Also, what is it like to kind of move away from Brunswick and to go to college outside of Glenn County?
Yeah, so I was at Middle Georgia State my first year, and I just transferred. This will be my second semester at Georgia Southern. So I take a full class load, a full-time student, but also I juggle the balance of, running my business that I recently started a couple years ago. And that's mostly based out of the Brunswick, coastal Georgia area. So I do end up driving back and forth pretty much every weekend. So I don't know, it's just like the standard like college schedule, and then on top of, busy weekends, put a lot of time in, answering emails for business and, editing videos and stuff like that.
I love it, man. You kind of tapped on it a little bit, and I want you to kind of open up just a little bit more. Your personal business, can you kind of share what that is? And also, I got some news from my sources that you're pretty financially savvy, at least being able to save and manage your money well. So speak a little bit more on that, and then why it's important to be able to have some kind of financial literacy.
Yeah, so I started I'm a freelance videographer, and I film mostly weddings and then some, commercial videos every now and then. And I film approximately 15 weddings a year, so a little more than once a month. And so that keeps me super busy, having to, plan beforehand with the bride and the groom, and same process with the company if I'm doing a commercial shoot. And yeah, what was the question?
No, I'm just asking. I heard that you manage your finances pretty well. And I know I've talked to a lot of high schoolers. They always ask about, they don't get enough information on that. So if you had any more advice that you want to provide on that, we can talk about it.
Yeah, the I enjoy making money and spending money. I like buying nice things. And I started out with a normal part-time job at a restaurant, and I figured out really quickly that it's nice to own your own business and not have to rely on a normal, set schedule from your boss. And I like being my own boss. So I enjoy, working hard. It's a lot of work. But I enjoy, being able to make decent money and, set up my own schedule and stuff like that.
I love it, man. What I hear in your voice, man, is just like a grinder's attitude. I think it's in the blood of a lot of people from South Georgia. You got big aspiration of what you want to do, but then you're going to work for it as well, especially when it comes to the financial piece of it, right?
Right.
Speaking about finance, I mean, Cassie, so like when it comes to getting your law degree, reading, for those that haven't done it before, it can be quite expensive. And I don't know the full details, but maybe you can shed some light on what's kind of the realities of, we can open it up a little bit more as far as like paying for college. I know a lot of high school students really don't know fully much. I mean, a lot about the loan process, the interest rates, and if you have any friends personally that had to pay back their loans after college, like what's that like? What's the reality of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I can speak from personal situation. So I was not in any sort of position to afford college going into college. I got an academic scholarship. So that helped pave the way for me to go to Georgia State. But living in Atlanta, living expenses are obviously higher than they were in South Georgia. I lived with my parents in South Georgia, and then when I moved to Atlanta, I was on my own. So cost of living is higher. I also had a part-time job. I waited tables in addition to my schedule. So obviously undergrad is less expensive, and you can get grants that you can apply for, which is completely free money. You just apply for the grant. There are things like, the Zell Miller Scholarship, the Hope Scholarship back when I was in school. So depending on how you did academically, and then there are extra scholarships that you can apply for at your institution that you just have to kind of grind out applications for. It's not particularly enjoyable, but once you have an essay for one, you can pretty much adapt it for all of them. Sometimes there are specific prompts, so you have to, obviously think about the prompt and consider it, but you can win scholarships if you put the effort in. Then beyond that, there's student loans, which I took out loans for undergrad as well as both of my professional degrees. Undergraduate loans, you can get those subsidized, so you can have the interest deferred on those until you graduate. Don't take more than you need would always be my suggestion. Work to the extent you can to backfill, because if you take more than you need, you're going to be in a really crappy position once you graduate and have to start paying those back. And more often than not, when you graduate undergrad, you're not going to be making, an astronomical income. That's not true of everyone, but usually right out of undergrad, you're not making a ton of money. So those student loan payments can be expensive, but they also oftentimes have income-based repayment programs, so they take into consideration your income, but it takes a long time to pay them back. I would say then when it comes to professional school, there are a lot of options like GRA positions. So that's graduate research assistant positions. I was able to find one of those where I work for a professor During the semester, I got a stipend each semester for my work, and then they also paid the cost of my tuition. So you still have living expenses, obviously, you know, so you have to take that into consideration. But that's an option for a lot of people who couldn't afford to, you know, get an MBA or get a law degree. And those are definitely options to pursue if you did well academically or if you find a connection. Networking is everything. And so you don't necessarily have to have great grades if you have a connection with a professor. So I would say talk to your professors because that can open up doors. And then after you graduate after that, I would say once you're in a position to start paying back your loans, don't pay the minimums or you'll have them forever. Definitely aggressively pay down your loans, pay down. There are different philosophies on how to pay off debt, but I would say mine was always attack the highest interest rate first with the highest principal because that would pay it off the fastest. Some people like a snowball method where they do the smallest amount to the largest amount, but there are financial opportunities out there. You just have to really research them.
For everybody that's going to watch this on rewind on the cloud live stream, you guys may want to rewind exactly what she just said because we're dropping gems and the reality of what the college costs. Kind of staying on the same topic before I go to the next panelist, Cassie. Can you talk about the reality of what it takes to choose a degree that'll also have financial benefit after you graduated? Because you kind of hinted towards it a little bit earlier. Like you graduated international affairs, but would that have gotten you financially where you wanted to be in the future? And what advice would you give to high school students as they make that decision to maybe go to college and graduate in underwater basket weaving just because it's a degree? But what's the reality of after you graduate, one, having to pay that back, and then two, fighting to be able to make that into a career to make enough money to sustain yourself?
Yeah, so I was not able to find a good paying job after I got my degree in international affairs, which is why I say I would have gone to something finance related or business related if I was really looking to make money immediately after I graduated. But degrees are flexible. You can learn soft skills in each degree that can be applicable and transferable across different professions. So I completely pivoted. I started working in the financial services industry, got my securities licenses to trade stocks and mutual funds and all that good stuff on a personal finances level. And I made decent money doing that. I could have paid back my undergraduate loans, but I had always wanted to go to law school, and working for a few years put me in a position where I was able to afford to do that. And I did kind of a cost benefit analysis. I knew how much it was going to cost each year to go to school. I went to a public law school. Georgia State is one of the most diverse and most affordable law schools in the nation. And so I did a cost benefit analysis, looked up how much it would cost to go to school, and looked at the type of job options available to me after I graduated to see if I could offset those costs. And I figured out that Georgia State is ranked. Rankings matter in terms of law school. Undergrad, less so, but definitely in terms of law school. Georgia State is ranked, in the 50s or 60s, which is not top tier, but it was great because it was in Atlanta where a lot of big law firms were. So I knew if I worked really hard and was at the top of my class, I had a shot at getting into one of those firms, which I did. And I'm very fortunate now to have the income to have easily offset the cost of all my degrees at this point. Hard work, but it's worth it.
Yeah. You talk about being able to get one of those law firms, being able to land a job. I think that goes right into Jerry, your experience of being able to graduate with your undergraduate degree in criminal justice. Can you talk about what it took to, one, get a job right after you graduated, and how long that took? Was it based off connections or was it based off of pure merit and your school kind of helped you out to find a job after you graduated?
So right after I graduated, I actually found a job based on need. Being in the criminal justice need, there's, I hate to say, but people offend every day. So job security and the need for our job is always important. So I started out, I actually had a job before I graduated. But my degree helped in securing that, helped securing the payment, the salary that I was going to get because of that.
I got you. You kind of mentioned earlier before we started the cast that you also want to go for your master's degree. Like,
Yep.
One, why is that even important? And two, why is it important to you to go down that right to get another degree?
Well, I currently have my master's degree in criminal justice, and I went back and got it in criminal justice because I eventually want to start teaching. I want to be able to teach at a college, because that's also what inspired me when I was in college, having a good professor who still made me look and see like, hey, I can do this. And then actually doing the job and seeing like there's a lot that I know now that I can give my friend, I can see me in as somebody who's new to the criminal justice, just trying to figure it out as a college student, that I can give them. And I'm currently in school now for public administration, and that's because I just wanted to say, like you say, like the question that you asked, I wanted to be able to have an out, just in case I want to stop doing criminal justice. I want to be able to go into administration anywhere, and that's why I'm still in school.
I love it. For those students that may not know what criminal justice is, or criminal science, and are thinking about possibly majoring in it in high school, and once they go off to college, can you kind of explain a little bit, a broad essence of what the criminal justice field does, why you should go into it if you have interest in it?
Criminal justice, with criminal justice, studying it as an undergrad or getting it into the degree field is more or less an overhaul of the things that you will learn, like on the street, through criminology, psychology, just how the mind of people works, the rights, wrongs, the policies that may be placed, the laws, and why they are used throughout the United States to govern. And it's just a real deep insight in what you learn in those.
Okay. Nope, that's solid, man. Thanks for the overview. I think there's benefit into the students that are listening right now, just to know what other possibilities out there that they may want to get into.
Also, some jobs within the criminal justice field, you do not have to have a degree to go into, but it's good for promotional reasons. And it's also some jobs that you like crime scene investigators, homicide detectives, FBI agents. You have to have a degree in order to get those positions.
Got it. That's good to know, man. Those prerequisites, as students start to apply for them, they know what lies ahead and what they need to get done. Kobe, as you're in college right now, man, I think the reality of it is sometimes with going into the creative field, where it's like film, photography, music, sometimes it can get like a bad rap, with high school students. Have you ever experienced that before? And then two, what kind of encouragement would you give the high school students that are interested in going the drama route, or trying to make their way in Hollywood, or going in the film industry?
Yeah, a lot of times, and this might just be me like overthinking it, but a lot of times I feel like I'm not qualified for something because of my age. And to people that say that, I would say that your work speaks louder than your age or your qualifications. I don't have a degree yet. I will in a couple years. There's people that are better than me, and so just knowing like the market that you're in, looking back to like when I was in high school, I if I was talking to somebody who's in high school, I would just say, keep working, keep doing your best that you can, and that's about all that you can do. Don't be discouraged by looking at other people and what they're doing. Just do the best that you can do.
I love it, man. That's being a straight shooter right there, controlling what you control and making something shake from that. But from what you know right now, and the knowledge that you're getting in college, do you need a degree in film and photography or in the creative side to make it to the next level? Or why is it that you decide to go to the degree route versus being a freelancer, doing it on your own without getting that education behind you?
Yeah, so there's some jobs that you don't need a degree for, and others that it's required. For like what I'm doing right now as a freelance videographer, I would say don't go to college if that's what you want to do and you want to start your own business. If you want to learn more like the business side, sure, a business degree would be great. I want to keep my options open for the future, so that's why I decided to get a 4-year degree at Georgia Southern. But I have I'm paying cash for college. I'm not going into tens of thousands of dollars worth of debt for this degree. So if you don't have the resources and you don't want to be burdened by taking out huge student loans, then there's other options. And like you're saying, there's grants for that and scholarships. Hope and Zell Miller. Just focus on your academics. Yeah.
So are you telling me there's an opportunity to work while you're also an undergraduate student? You can do both?
Yeah, you can do both. It's sometimes challenging, and a lot of late nights, and you have to put in the grind, but it's definitely possible.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to get that on film so that other people can hear that. And they actually can do it because you're a living, breathing example of it. And I know, Cassie, going back to what you mentioned a little bit earlier, as far as wanting to be able to graduate at the top of your class so you can compete for a top law firm. What is it like being a lawyer in the work that you do? I think sometimes students can hear like, oh yeah, I want to be a lawyer. And sometimes it can be a little bit vague. But can you kind of speak about some of the different routes you can go within law? And then what's the day-to-day life like as far as like hours you work? Is it long hours, short hours? Do you get to make your own hours? Or what's a little bit more insight on that?
Yeah, so there's so many options in terms of law, in terms of what you can do. So obviously there's criminal law, which everybody has heard about if you've ever seen Law and Order, or you watch a TV show, you see criminal law. It's in the courtroom, the murder trials, the robberies, et cetera. That's what you see on TV a lot. A lot of what you don't see is more the civil trials. And both are options. Some people do both. A lot of people specialize. So the type of law I do, I didn't even know existed before I was in college and went to law school. I do kind of a hybrid type of law, somewhere between the civil, which is, monetary penalties, and the criminal side, which you can be charged with a felony or a misdemeanor, et cetera. And I represent businesses, corporations, and sometimes individuals in white collar crime, and then government investigations, internal investigations. So for example, if the Environmental Protection Agency wanted to inspect a company and investigate a company for environmental crimes, or if the Department of Justice wanted to investigate a company for bribery or kickbacks, which are kind of synonyms for each other, then we represent the company against the government and help them work through that investigation. And sometimes companies just want to investigate themselves. They figure out something's wrong. They have somebody report that something has happened, and they say, we want to look and see what happened. We want to fix this. We go in and we help them do that internal review and fix what they're doing. So I'm usually not going to be in a courtroom unless we haven't done our job correctly, or unless we're not willing to settle for the amount that the government or whatever party we're against wants to settle for. So our goal is to resolve it before it gets to court. And so my day-to-day is reviewing documents, strategizing, looking at the facts of cases, looking at what they potentially might charge us with, and trying to build a defense around that, and helping the company not only identify the problematic areas, but try to remediate those before we go back to the government. We try to work with the government to fix the problem instead of ending up in a courtroom, but sometimes that's inevitable. So that's our ultimate goal. But there's so many different types of law. Before I started the law firm I work at now, I actually clerked on the Georgia Supreme Court. So I worked for a judge, and we did pretty much exclusively criminal law. So the Georgia Supreme Court has exclusive jurisdiction for murder appeals. They see a lot of other cases as well, but I did a lot of murder reviews during that time. And it's a completely different type of law, but it's rewarding in an entirely different way, because you're not just looking at the facts of the crimes themselves, but you're also looking at, were this person's rights upheld when they went through the criminal justice system? And a lot of times the answer is no. You have judges across, 159 counties in Georgia looking at things, and they don't all do it the same way. And it really has an impact on you seeing it from a different perspective of a reviewing court. So there are a lot of different types of law. You can be an individual practitioner, you can work for a huge firm. There's tons of pathways.
Thanks for the insight on that. Super, 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 I would say valuable, because I think a lot of times students just don't know as far as all the lanes that you can go to within law. And then Jerry, I think we're rounding it up just a little bit. But Jerry, can you talk about, I know you're a felony parole and probation officer. What's your day-to-day like in that role that you do?
So as a current felony parole and probation officer for the state, I wear a lot of different hats, and no day is the same. Our main focus is supervising our offenders and making sure that they're successful during rehabilitation, while also holding them accountable and upholding the order of the court. Some days I am a case manager, some days I am a preacher, some days I'm a teacher, some days a helping hand. You get different, you get a different thing, but it's all in the road of trying to help somebody stay out of the system. Whenever the basis of when with probation is when somebody is charged with a felony, they may instead of having to go to prison for that felony, they're offered the role of probation. The difference between that and which is kind of like a second chance. And with that second chance, the judge usually gives them a set, and we work hand in hand with the district attorney's office in trying to be helpful and make sure that they follow. There's going to be things that you can do, and there's things that they can't do, and we make sure that they're doing the things that they're supposed to do and not doing the things that they're not supposed to do. So it's different. You go from seeing, we do a number of different things as far as and there's different types of services as far as ID cards, certificates, driver's license, getting their GEDs, just regular case management. And then there's times where we serve warrants, we search houses for drugs, we arrest people. So it's a number of different things that goes into it. We visit people's houses and check on them regularly. There are all types of things that we do in this field.
Awesome. That's really good for me to know, because I didn't know it goes into that much detail, and the breadth of it is so wide as well. As we wrap up, I want to, keep it a good time limit so people can actually watch and stay in tune the whole time. But I got one last question for everybody as we go around the horn, and Kobe, will start off with yourself. And the question is, what would you tell your 16 or 17-year-old self as you're navigating the walls of Brunswick High School, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, I would tell my high school self, stay focused, put in the hard work. It can seem stressful sometimes, so many classes and assignments. And I would just say stay focused and work hard. It will pay off one day.
I love it, man. It's kind of like there are farmers, you plant seeds and you reap what you sow. Kind of has a biblical context as well. But Cassie, please share us with your insight. What would you tell 17-year-old Cassie over at Glenn Academy going through school?
Yeah, I mean, always be the hardest worker in the room if you can, but also keep in mind that your past mistakes and limitations don't have to define you. Your parents' past mistakes and limitations don't have to define you, and you can reinvent yourself as many times as you need to want to get to where you want to go. And just don't hold yourself back thinking that something you've done in the past will limit you going forward. You can always build a new bridge and make a new option.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you. And then Jerry, bringing up the rear, what do you got, man, for those high school students they're navigating the pathways? What would you tell them? One last piece of advice.
Use every tool available to you. Make sure you talk to those guidance counselors. You go to events like this. You get on your laptop and do research. Whatever you have at your disposal, use it. It's beneficial to you in the end, and you'll get all the information that you need, and that'll put you ahead.
I love it, man. Thanks. And so I know we had some students, as I'm tracking the participants that dialed out a little bit early to get to wherever they had to get done. Like I said, this is the live cast that we got going. So we'll be watched probably over 2,000 to 3,000 times over on YouTube. But I want to say thank you to all the panelists that decided to offer your time to be with us tonight. I know we're all in different areas of Georgia. Some of us may be overseas, like myself, down here in Mexico. But Kobe, thanks, man, for dialing in and being able to share your experiences, what the life like is college, being able to transition from, possibly being an airline pilot to going to pursuing another passion that you have in the film and photography industry. And then Cassie, just being able to see you evolve over the years and being able to see you go up to the big city of Atlanta, our capital, and then go through the education and fight, work your butt off to be able to be where you're at today. It's been super, super intriguing and then super gratifying as a friend. And then Jerry, despite you going to Glenn Academy, no, I'm just joking. Everything's good in Glenn County. No, I'm super proud of you as well, man, and where you're at in the criminal justice field, feeling that call to action just a few years ago and want to be a part of the solution. So at this point, if anybody else has anything more to add, one last final note, feel free to speak up, and then I'll close this out. So Kobe, you all good? You got anything else that you want to share with us before we cut out? All good. Jerry, you got anything else you want to share with us?
Yeah, you didn't ask me what I would do if I can talk to my 17-year-old self.
Please.
invest in Bitcoin. but that's all, man.
Okay. And then Cass, you got anything else that you want to share before we get off?
Just thanks for having us.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it we got for this week 1 of Brunswick and Beyond. Next week, we got some great panelists coming in as well. So I look forward to everybody tuning in. But until that point, we'll see you on week 2.